The dark, dense forests to the south of Elwyn were not always such a foreboding place. Before the First War and the opening of the Dark Portal, the hamlets of Duskwood were considered a part of Elwyn. The invasion of the Orcish horde, the rediscovery of the Scythe of Elune, and the residence of a local necromancer has cast the forests in shadow and sent the majority of the populace fleeing to the last remaining stronghold of Darkshire. The Scythe of Elune was an artifact created from the Fang of Goldrin and the Staff of Elune. It was created in an attempt to subdue the fury that came with the druid's pack form, the form of the wolf. The scythe backfired, however, and turned those druids who used it into what are now known as the Worgen. Malfurion, seeing the threat posed by the rage-fueled Worgen, banished them to the Emerald Dream. The Scythe of Elune retained the power to summon the Worgen back from the dream, and was hidden away with its keeper, Melthandris. Elune herself later uncovered the scythe and gifted it to the night elf Valinde Starsong to help her in cleansing the corrupted Fell Wood. In her battles with the demons, Valinde summoned a pack of Worgen and quickly learned the difficulty in controlling the transformed druids. Learning of another individual, Arugel, who had learned to summon the Worgen without the use of the scythe, Valinde traveled to the Eastern Kingdoms and began her journey north. In the forest that would later be known as Duskwood, however, Valinde was ambushed and killed by Worgen seeking to use the scythe for their own purposes. The fight took place in a cave now known as Roland's Doom, and after a cave-in triggered by the attack, the scythe was lost to time. It was a young human, a Defias operative working in Duskwood, that would later come across the scythe. Jitters found the scythe within Roland's Doom. He freed the scythe and inadvertently summoned a pack of Worgen to Duskwood. In his flight, he left the scythe in the hands of the Worgen, who began using it to summon more of their kind to the darkening woods. This was but one of Duskwood's mounting problems. To the west, in a cemetery of Raven Hill, where those who have fallen to the recent wars and to the Worgen are buried, a necromancer, Morbent Fell, took up residence and began summoning a legion of undead. Though defeated by adventurers in the past, the necromancer resurfaced as a lich and continues to harass much of Duskwood with his undead minions. Morbent Fell has also allied himself with the nefarious Dark Riders of Deadwind Pass. The Riders are steeped in mystery, serving an unknown master with an unknown will. What is known, however, is the Dark Riders were fervently searching for the scythe, and scouring Duskwood for any sign of the artifact. At the forest center lies one of the 4 portals linking the Emerald Dream to Azeroth, and until the recent cleansing of the Nightmare, the area was guarded by one of Ysera's corrupted lieutenants, green dragons who fell to the encroaching Nightmare. Recently, an adventurer ventures into the perpetual dusk and arrives at Darkshire to offer to help the hopeless hamlet. The adventurer is sent up to the abandoned watchtower of Beggar's Haunt, and finds the old hermit Abercrombie there. Abercrombie enlists the adventurer's aid in a seemingly benign series of tasks, until, upon returning to Darkshire, with a note from Abercrombie for the mayor, the adventurer finds the town ablaze and under attack by Abercrombie and his new creation, Stitches. Abercrombie, it is revealed, is another necromancer that had been drawn to the dark of Duskwood. During the adventurer's travels, they are stopped by a young man in search of his brother. Tobias Mistmantle, concerned over his brother's sudden lack of communication, had traveled to Duskwood in search of answers, but is met with silence and fear at the mention of his brother's name. The adventurer, with the reluctant help of the town's clerk, pieces together parts of Stalvin Mistmantle's diary, learning of Stalvin's unrequited love for a young woman already arranged to marry another. In his anger, Stalvin butchered the girl and her future groom, and perhaps many more, and retreated to his home outside of Darkshire, where he eventually succumbed to his hatred and became undead. The townspeople now refuse to speak of the event, calling it only the massacre. Tobias is able to confront his brother, who attempts to kill him. During the struggle, Tobias reveals that he is, in fact, a Worgen. After laying Stalvin to rest, Tobias informs the adventurer that he arrived with other Worgen who traveled to Duskwood with the hope of returning some of the wild Worgen to sanity. The The adventurer meets up with them and learns of a worgen who has exhibited signs of control, and heads out to track down the worgen. With the wild worgen trapped and brought to the camp at Raven's Hill, and a potion administered, the worgen comes to his senses and reveals himself to be Seven Jorgen. Seven immediately recognizes Jitters, one of the men helping the worgen at Raven's Hill, and jumps him. He blames Jitters for summoning the worgen to Duskwood, and for the death of his family. In their search for the Scythe of Elune, it seems that the Dark Riders were lured to Seven's home, where his family lived, and where Jitters was hiding after his encounter with the Scythe. When the family was unable to provide the Dark Riders with news of the Scythe's location, the Dark Riders slaughtered Seven's wife and kids, leaving them for Seven to find hours later upon his return home. Jitters fled the scene and later revealed the truth to Seven. Seven was later afflicted with the worgen's curse and succumbed to its fury. With Seven back to sanity, he reveals that before he became a worgen, he was working on defeating the necromancer known as Mor'Ladim, the man responsible for the undead ravaging Raven's Hill, and an ally to the Dark Riders who slaughtered his family. Mor'Ladim was thought slain, but upon investigation, the adventurer finds Mor'Ladim has returned as an undead lich. Using the recovered Lightforged rod, the adventurer slays the lich once more, putting an end to his treachery. While traversing the Raven Hill Cemetery, the adventurer comes across a dug-up grave with the tombstone name Mor'Ladim atop it. Inquiring in Darkshire, the adventurer is told the story of the knight Mor'Ladim and the undead Mor'Ladim. Mor'Ladim fought under Uther the Lightbringer in the Third War, leaving his home and family. He returned to find his hometown a changed place, a dark place, and no evidence of his family. He asked around and searched long for his family, ignoring suggestions that he might try the ever-growing Raven Hills Cemetery. Eventually he gave in and began to wander the tombstones. There he found 3 gathered tombstones, and etched upon them were the names of his wife and 2 of his 3 children. He lashed out in a fury, and when 2 of the cemetery's attendants approached him in his grief-stricken state to try to restrain him, Morgan slaughtered them in a blind fury. When his senses returned and he found himself covered in blood, he was so overcome with emotion that he took his own life. Only days later, his grave was disturbed, and the undead, known as Mor'Ladim, now roams the cemetery. The adventurer learns that one of Morgan's 3 children remains alive and serving under Darkshire's Night Watch, and with her help, the spirit of Mor'Ladim is finally put to rest. Once a peaceful area of Stormwind's forests, even the main roads through Duskwood are now wrought with dangers. Only through sheer determination does the small populace of the darkened forest strive to survive against the encroaching evils. With the Scythe of Elune moved out of Duskwood and the notorious necromancers put to rest, perhaps it is only a matter of time before the woods are returned to the quiet tranquility it once knew.